Captain Veltar stared at the view screen from his command chair aboard the Zephyrian vessel Stellar Whisper Star. The unknown craft floating in the neutral zone looked like something from a museum. Its hull was simple metal plating, dented and scratched from long travel. The propulsion systems appeared to be basic chemical rockets, the kind his people had abandoned centuries ago. "What do you make of it?" Veltar asked his science officer, Mordak, who was studying the readings on his console. "The energy output is minimal, Captain," Mordak replied, his four eyes blinking in sequence. "No active shields, no weapon signatures. The construction is crude but functional." Veltar's second-in-command, Commander Yixtal, moved closer to the captain's chair. Her silver skin gleamed under the bridge lights. "Salvage vessel perhaps? One of the frontier species might have sent it to collect debris." "Or it's a derelict," Veltar said, tapping his clawed fingers on the armrest. "Either way, we should investigate. There might be useful materials aboard." The Stellar Whisper was on a routine patrol mission along the border between hegemony space and the unexplored regions beyond. They often encountered abandoned vessels from various species attempting to push further into the galaxy than their technology allowed. Most ended up as floating tombs in the void. "Take us closer," Veltar ordered. "Prepare boarding pods." As they approached, their sensors revealed more details about the strange ship. It was roughly 300 meters long, built in sections that had clearly been assembled in space. The design was functional rather than elegant, with external arrays and equipment pods attached to the main hull like barnacles on an ancient sea creature. "No response to our hails," the communications officer reported. "The vessel appears to be in some kind of minimal power mode." Veltar studied the craft more carefully. Despite its primitive appearance, something about it nagged at him. The proportions were wrong for most known species, and there were design elements he had never seen before. "Life signs?" he asked. Mordak adjusted his sensors. "Difficult to determine. The hull composition is interfering with our scans, but I am detecting some kind of stasis chambers. Multiple life forms in suspended animation." "Hibernation systems," Commander Yixtal observed. "That would explain how they traveled so far from home." Veltar nodded. Many species used hibernation for long-distance travel, though few attempted journeys that would require it. The energy requirements alone made such trips impractical for most civilizations. "Launch boarding pods," he commanded. "Full survey team. If there are survivors, we follow standard first contact protocols." Two sleek Zephyrian boarding pods detached from the Stellar Whisper and glided toward the unknown vessel. They attached to what appeared to be an airlock with soft magnetic clamps. The boarding team worked quickly to establish an atmosphere seal and cut through the outer door. On the bridge, Veltar watched through the boarding team's helmet cameras as they entered the alien ship. The corridors were narrow and utilitarian, with exposed conduits running along the walls. Everything was built for efficiency rather than comfort. "Artificial gravity is minimal," the team leader reported. "Atmosphere is breathable for most species, though the oxygen content is higher than standard." They made their way through the ship, passing closed doors and darkened chambers. The hibernation bay was located near the center of the vessel, a large room filled with dozens of cylindrical pods. Most were empty, but several showed active life signs. "Captain," the team leader's voice crackled through the comm system. "The hibernation systems are beginning to activate. I think our presence triggered an automatic wake-up sequence." Veltar leaned forward in his chair. "Step back and observe. Let's see what we're dealing with." The pods began to hum with activity. Lights flickered on throughout the chamber as the ship's systems came online. One by one, the hibernation chambers opened with soft hissing sounds. The beings inside were unlike anything in the hegemony's extensive databases. They were bipedal, with pale skin and hair on their heads. Their movements were slow at first as they emerged from hibernation, but they showed remarkable coordination for a species waking from extended sleep. The apparent leader of the group approached the boarding team without fear. He was tall for his species, with dark hair and calm eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. When he spoke, the translation matrix immediately began working to decode his language. "I am Captain Park of the UES Indomitable *", he said, his voice steady despite having just awakened from hibernation. "This is a deep space reconnaissance vessel of the Human Federation. You are welcome aboard our ship." The translation was clear, but Veltar's antennae twitched with surprise. This species called themselves humans, and they claimed to be on a reconnaissance mission. The implications were staggering. "Ask him how far they have traveled," Veltar instructed his boarding team. The team leader relayed the question, and Captain Park answered without hesitation. Our homeworld is approximately 47,000 light-years from this position, he said matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. The bridge of the *Stellar Whisper* fell completely silent. Even the background hum of the ship's system seemed to quiet. 47,000 light-years was a distance that challenged the imagination. The Zephyrian hegemony, one of the most advanced civilizations in known space, had never attempted a journey of more than 20,000 light-years from their core worlds. Veltar felt his world shift slightly. These humans, with their primitive-looking ship and crude technology, had traveled further into the unknown than his own people had ever dared to venture. Captain Veltar straightened in his command chair and activated the communication channel to the human vessel. His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to dealing with lesser civilizations. Captain Park, on behalf of the Zephyrian hegemony, we offer safe escort to our territory, he announced with what he considered generous magnanimity. Your primitive vessel clearly requires protection in these dangerous regions of space. Through the view screen, he could see Captain Park on the bridge of the Indomitable Star. The human leader turned to consult with his officers. Veltar noticed a woman with short black hair wearing what appeared to be a commander's uniform, and a younger male at what looked like a weapons console. Commander Kim, what's your assessment? Captain Park asked quietly. The woman called Commander Kim studied her instruments for a moment. Their vessel is impressive by local standards, Captain. Advanced shield technology and what appears to be plasma-based weaponry. Lieutenant Han, any concerns from a tactical perspective? Park continued. The officer at the tactical station shook his head. Nothing we can't handle, sir. Their sensor sweeps are quite thorough though. Captain Park turned back to face the communication screen. We appreciate your generous gesture, Captain Veltar. An escort would be most welcome. Veltar felt pleased with himself. Another primitive species properly impressed by hegemony superiority. It was always satisfying to encounter civilizations that recognized their betters. As the two vessels began moving together toward Zephyrian space, Veltar ordered routine scans of the human ship. It was standard procedure when encountering new species to catalog their technology level and potential usefulness. Science Officer Mordak bent over his console, his 4 eyes studying the sensor readings with growing confusion. After several minutes, he approached the captain's chair with obvious concern. Captain, I'm receiving some very unusual readings from the human vessel, Mordak reported, his voice troubled. Unusual how? Veltar asked, not particularly concerned. Primitive technology often produce strange readings. Their energy signatures don't match their apparent technology level, Mordak explained. The power output should be impossible with those simple chemical rockets we observed. And their hull metallurgy is completely unknown to our databases. Veltar's antennae twitched slightly. Perhaps their materials science is more advanced than their propulsion systems. Some species develop unevenly. It's more than that, Captain, Mordak continued. The molecular composition of their hull plating appears to shift and adapt. Our sensors can't get consistent readings. It's as if the metal itself is alive somehow. Commander Yixtal moved to look over Mordak's shoulder at the sensor data. Could it be some form of organic technology? We've encountered bioships before. No, this is different, Mordak said, adjusting his instruments. The energy patterns are unlike anything in our records. And there are what appear to be additional systems running throughout the ship that don't show up on standard scans. Veltar considered this information. Perhaps these humans were more developed than they appeared. It wouldn't be the first time a species had surprised them with hidden capabilities. Continue monitoring, he ordered. But don't let it concern you overmuch. Their ship still looks like it was assembled in a scrapyard. After several hours of travel, Veltar decided it would be appropriate to request a cultural exchange. Such meetings were standard protocol when encountering new species, and it would give them a better understanding of human capabilities. Captain Park, Veltar transmitted, we would be honored to arrange a cultural exchange between our peoples. Perhaps some of your officers could visit our vessel, and we could send a delegation to yours. Captain Park appeared on screen again, this time flanked by both Commander Kim and Lieutenant Han. All three humans looked perfectly calm and composed. That sounds like an excellent idea, Captain Veltar, Park replied. Cultural exchange has always been an important part of our mission parameters. Veltar was pleased by their eagerness. Most primitive species were either too afraid or too proud to accept such invitations immediately. Wonderful, Veltar said. We can arrange suitable meeting spaces and translation protocols. Your people will find our technology quite impressive, I'm sure. Captain Park nodded politely. I'm certain they will. Though I should probably mention something about our vessel, Captain Veltar. Oh? What might that be? The Indomitable is merely a scout vessel, Park said casually. Our actual fleet operates under quite different protocols and capabilities. Veltar's expression didn't change, but internally he felt a familiar mixture of amusement and pity. Every primitive species he had ever encountered made similar claims about hidden fleets and superior technology. It was a natural psychological defense mechanism when faced with obviously superior civilizations. I'm sure your fleet is quite impressive by your standards, Veltar replied diplomatically. We look forward to learning more about your people's achievements. After closing the communication channel, Commander Yixtal approached the captain's chair. Do you think they actually have a significant fleet, Captain? Veltar made a dismissive gesture with one clawed hand. Standard primitive boasting, Commander. Look at their ship. Even if they have a dozen vessels like that one, what could they possibly threaten? Our single cruiser outguns anything they could construct. Science Officer Mordak looked up from his console again. Captain, I'm still getting those unusual energy readings. If anything, they're becoming more pronounced. Ignore the readings, Mordak, Veltar said firmly. Sometimes primitive technology creates false sensor echoes. Focus on what we can see with our own eyes. What they could see was a battered, crude vessel that looked like it barely held together. Whatever tricks their senses were playing, the evidence before them was clear. These humans were just another primitive species that had stumbled further from home than was wise for their technology level. Veltar settled back in his command chair, confident in his assessment of the situation. The space around them suddenly filled with hostile vessels as 12 Kethmori warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect attack formation. Their dark hulls bristled with weapon arrays that could reduce planets to ash. Captain Veltar felt his blood turn cold as he recognized the distinctive markings of a Kethmori raiding fleet. Battle stations. Veltar shouted, but he knew it was hopeless. A single Zephyrian cruiser against 12 Kethmori warships was not a battle but an execution. The lead Kethmori vessel, a massive dreadnought twice the size of the Stellar Whisper opened communications. The reptilian face of Commander Secton appeared on screen, his yellow eyes glowing with predatory hunger. Unknown vessels, you have entered Kethmori hunting grounds, the alien commander hissed. Surrender your ships for tribute or face immediate destruction. You have 60 seconds to comply. Veltar's hands trembled as he reached for the surrender controls. The Kethmori were known throughout the galaxy as ruthless raiders who had conquered dozens of species. Their quantum disruptors could punch through any known shield technology, and their plasma cannons could melt ship hulls in seconds. Captain, Science Officer Mordak whispered urgently, our shields won't hold against their firepower for more than a few minutes. I know, Veltar replied, his voice heavy with defeat. The Zephyrian military doctrine was clear in such situations. When facing overwhelming odds, surrender was the only logical choice. At least some of his crew might survive to be traded back to the hegemony. Suddenly, Captain Park's voice crackled through the communication system from the Indomitable Star. Captain Veltar, we're reading hostile vessels in the area. Request permission to handle this situation. Veltar stared at the communication panel in disbelief. Captain Park, there are 12 Kethmori warships out there. With what weapons could you possibly handle this situation? Standard defensive systems, Captain, Park replied calmly, as if discussing routine maintenance procedures. Commander Yixtal leaned close to Veltar's chair. Captain, that human ship has no visible weapons. They'll be destroyed in seconds. Through the view screen, Veltar watched the Indomitable slowly move between the Stellar Whisper and the Kethmori fleet. The human vessel looked impossibly small and fragile compared to the massive alien warships surrounding them. Commander Secton's voice boomed across all frequencies. Primitive vessel, move aside or be destroyed with the others. This is your only warning. Captain Park's response was broadcast on all channels. Kethmori vessels, you are ordered to withdraw immediately. This is your only warning. The Kethmori commander let out a harsh laugh. Destroy the small ship first. Make an example for the others. 4 Kethmori cruisers opened fire simultaneously. Brilliant streams of plasma energy and quantum disruptor beams converged on the Indomitable from multiple angles. The combined firepower was enough to vaporize a small moon. Veltar closed his eyes, unable to watch the destruction of the brave but foolish humans. When he opened them again, his jaw dropped in amazement. The indomitable asterisk was still there, completely undamaged. Some kind of shimmering barrier surrounded the human vessel, absorbing the devastating energy weapons as if they were harmless light beams. The plasma fire simply disappeared when it touched the barrier, and the quantum disruptors seemed to bend around the ship without effect. Impossible, Mordak whispered, staring at his instruments. Those barriers shouldn't exist. The energy requirements alone would drain our entire power grid. But what happened next truly defied understanding. The human vessel began to return fire, but not with any weapons the Zephyrians could identify. Beams of pure energy lanced out from hidden emitters on the Indomitable's hull. These beams didn't strike the Kethmori shields at all. Instead, they passed through the enemy defenses as if the shields weren't there. Their weapons are phasing through our shields, one of the Kethmori captains screamed over the communication channels. Each human weapon strike hit with surgical precision. The first Kethmori cruiser suddenly went dark as its main reactor was somehow shut down from the outside. The second lost all power to its weapon systems. The third began spinning helplessly as its navigation controls failed. How are they doing this? Commander Yixtal asked, her voice filled with awe. Veltar had no answer. The human weapons seemed to ignore every law of physics he understood. They struck exactly where they needed to, disabling critical systems without destroying the ships entirely. It was like watching a master surgeon operate on 12 patients simultaneously. Commander Secton's voice was no longer confident. All ships, concentrate fire on the small vessel. Use everything. The remaining Kethmori warships unleashed their full arsenal. The space around the indomitable asterisk filled with energy weapons, missile strikes, and exotic particle beams. The human ship sat calmly in the center of the storm, its barriers absorbing everything without visible strain. Meanwhile, the human counterattack continued with methodical precision. One by one, the Kethmori vessels lost power, weapons, or propulsion. Some simply went completely dead in space. Others began transmitting surrender signals as their crews realized they were helpless. Within 6 minutes of the first shot being fired, the entire Kethmori raiding fleet drifted powerless around them. Not a single ship had been destroyed, but all were completely disabled. The precision required for such an operation was beyond anything Veltar had ever witnessed. Commander Kim's voice came through the communication system, as calm and professional as if she were reporting routine sensor readings. Hostile vessels neutralized, Captain. All threats have been eliminated. Captain Park's voice followed immediately. Captain Veltar, the area is now secure. We can continue to our destination whenever you're ready. Veltar sat in stunned silence, staring at the disabled Kethmori fleet floating helplessly in space around them. The warning klaxons aboard the disabled Kethmori command vessel had been screaming for nearly 10 minutes before anyone noticed. Commander Secton, still trapped on his powerless bridge, watched helplessly as his ship's automatic distress beacon transmitted their desperate situation across Kethmori space. Captain Veltar was reviewing the impossible battle they had just witnessed when Science Officer Mordak's instruments began detecting massive hyperspace distortions approaching their position. Captain, Mordak announced, his voice tight with fear, I'm reading incoming vessels. Many vessels. The first ships began dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of sensor range. Then more appeared. And more. Within minutes, over 200 Kethmori warships had materialized in a massive battle formation that stretched across several thousand kilometers of space. Veltar felt his heart stop beating as he recognized the distinctive silhouettes of Kethmori flagship dreadnoughts among the approaching fleet. Each of those massive vessels carried enough firepower to sterilize entire worlds. The smaller cruisers and destroyers accompanying them were individually more powerful than his own ship. By the ancient stars, Commander Yixtal whispered, staring at the tactical display. It's the entire 7th Battle Fleet. Veltar's hands moved automatically to the evacuation protocols. There was no point in fighting. No force in the known galaxy could stand against such overwhelming numbers. Even the combined might of the Zephyrian hegemony would struggle against a fleet of this size. Prepare evacuation pods, he ordered, his voice hollow with defeat. All non-essential personnel to escape craft immediately. Through the communication channel, he could hear Captain Park speaking calmly with his officers aboard the Indomitable Star. The humans seemed remarkably composed for people about to face certain death. Commander Kim, what's our tactical assessment? Park asked. 217 vessels, Captain, the human woman replied. 18 dreadnought class, 43 heavy cruisers, and the remainder destroyers and support craft. Lieutenant Han, Can you handle this with standard protocols? The young man at the tactical station studied his instruments. It's within acceptable parameters, Captain. Though we might want to request backup just to be safe. Veltar couldn't believe what he was hearing. These humans were discussing facing an entire Kethmori battle fleet as if it were a minor inconvenience. Either they were completely insane or they possessed capabilities beyond imagination. Captain Park moved to what appeared to be a special communication console. Activating priority beacon, he announced to his crew. Veltar watched as Park input a complex sequence of commands into the console. A moment later, a transmission began broadcasting on frequencies the Zephyrian sensors couldn't even detect properly. Admiral Lee, this is reconnaissance vessel Indomitable *. Park spoke into the communication system. Current position is Sector 77 Alpha. We have encountered a significant Kethmori force and are requesting fleet support. The response came immediately, clear and professional. Acknowledged, Captain Park. Admiral Lee responding. Fleet is inbound, estimated arrival in 4 minutes. Maintain current position. Veltar stared at the communication panel in confusion. 4 minutes? Even the fastest ships in the galaxy required hours to traverse the distances between star systems. No fleet could possibly arrive in 4 minutes unless they were already nearby. Captain, Mordak called out urgently, I'm detecting massive spatial distortions. Something is happening to space itself around us. Through the view screen, Veltar could see space beginning to twist and fold in ways that hurt to look at directly. Reality seemed to bend and warp as if the universe itself was being reshaped by invisible forces. Then the human fleet began to arrive. The first vessel that phased into existence was larger than anything Veltar had ever seen. It was the size of a small moon, its hull composed of materials that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal while maintaining perfect structural integrity. Weapons arrays the size of city blocks dotted its surface. More ships followed. Dozens of them. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering that made the most advanced Zephyrian vessels look like primitive toys. Some were sleek and elegant, their hulls covered in geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with internal energy. Others were massive and angular, bristling with weapon systems that radiated power on scales that defied measurement. The largest vessel, which Veltar assumed was the flagship, was easily 10 kilometers long and covered in sensor arrays and communication equipment. Its very presence seemed to bend space around it, as if the ship was too massive for normal physics to contain. Fleet deployment complete, Admiral Lee's voice filled all communication channels with calm authority. All vessels report ready status. The human fleet didn't attack the Kethmori forces. They didn't need to. Their mere existence radiated such overwhelming power that several of the smaller Kethmori vessels immediately began broadcasting surrender signals. The massive human ships simply hung in space like sleeping giants, their weapon systems tracking every Kethmori vessel with casual precision. Commander Secton's voice crackled across the emergency channels, filled with terror. This is impossible. Where did they come from? Our scouts showed nothing but empty space. Admiral Lee's response was broadcast on all frequencies, her voice carrying the absolute authority of someone accustomed to commanding forces that could reshape galaxies. Kethmori fleet, you are completely surrounded, she announced. Power down all weapons systems and prepare for processing. Any vessel that fails to comply will face immediate termination. You have 30 seconds to begin compliance. The effect was immediate. Across the entire Kethmori armada, weapon systems powered down and shields dropped. Even the massive flagship dreadnoughts submitted to the human ultimatum without resistance. Lieutenant Han turned to Captain Park with professional calm. All enemy vessels have surrendered, Captain. What are your orders, sir? Standard capture protocols, Lieutenant, Park replied. Our intelligence division will want to examine their technology and interrogate their command staff. Veltar sat in stunned silence, watching history unfold before his eyes. A shimmer of blue light filled the bridge of the Stellar Whisper *, and suddenly a human figure materialized in the center of the command deck. Captain Veltar and his crew stared in amazement as the transport beam faded, leaving behind a woman in an elegant uniform that seemed to be made from materials that didn't exist in any known database. The woman was tall and composed, with graying hair and eyes that held depths of knowledge that made Veltar feel very young. She moved with the confidence of someone who commanded forces that could reshape entire star systems. Captain Veltar, she said, her voice carrying respect and authority in equal measure. I am Admiral Lee of the Human Federation Fleet. I must apologize for the deception we have practiced upon you and your people. Veltar tried to speak but found his voice had abandoned him entirely. The technology required for matter transportation had been declared impossible by the greatest minds of the hegemony. The energy requirements alone should have been beyond any civilization's capabilities. Admiral Lee noticed his struggle and gestured gently toward his command chair. "Please, Captain, remain seated. I know this must be overwhelming." "How?" Veltar finally managed to whisper. "The transportation technology alone should be impossible." "Many things that seem impossible are simply technologies that haven't been properly understood yet," Admiral Lee replied. "But that's not why I'm here. I need to explain something about our presence in this region of space." Commander Yixtal stepped forward, her silver skin pale with shock. "You said deception, Admiral. What kind of deception?" Admiral Lee turned to face the entire bridge crew. "The Indomitable Asterisk has been conducting diplomatic reconnaissance in this region for several months. Captain Park and his crew have been observing various galactic civilizations, studying your cultures, your conflicts, and your technological development." "Reconnaissance?" Veltar's voice cracked. "You mean you've been watching us?" "Not just you, Captain. We've been observing galactic civilization as a whole," Admiral Lee explained. "We needed to determine whether formal contact would be beneficial for all parties involved, or whether it might prove destabilizing to the existing balance of power." Science Officer Mordak looked up from his console, where he had been desperately trying to scan the human admiral with his instruments. "Captain, I can't get any readings from her at all. It's as if she doesn't exist on our sensors." Admiral Lee smiled slightly. "Your sensors are quite advanced, Officer Mordak, but they're designed to detect conventional matter and energy. Our equipment operates on different principles." Captain Park materialized on the bridge beside Admiral Lee, along with Commander Kim and Lieutenant Han. The transport process was so smooth it seemed like magic to the watching Zephyrians. "Captain Veltar," Park said warmly, "I want you to understand that everything you witnessed today was conducted with the utmost care for minimizing harm. We could have resolved the Keth Mori situation in many different ways." "Different ways?" Commander Yixtal asked. Commander Kim stepped forward, her voice quiet but carrying unmistakable strength. "We chose restraint, Commander. In every encounter, in every decision, we have chosen the path that preserves life and maintains stability." Admiral Lee gestured toward the viewscreen, where the massive human fleet could be seen surrounding the captured Keth Mori vessels. "Captain Veltar, we've had the capability to influence galactic affairs for many years. We could have intervened in conflicts, prevented wars, or imposed our will upon other civilizations. But you didn't," Veltar said, beginning to understand the implications. "No, we didn't," Admiral Lee confirmed. "Because conquest is easy, Captain. Any sufficiently advanced civilization can impose its will through force. But building something worth preserving, something that can grow and flourish on its own terms, that requires patience and wisdom." Captain Park moved to the viewscreen and looked out at the stars. "We're not conquerors, Captain Veltar. We like to think of ourselves as gardeners. And this galaxy has grown into something beautiful, something worth protecting." Lieutenant Han added respectfully, "Every species we've observed has contributed something unique to galactic civilization. The Zephyrian hegemony's diplomatic traditions, the artistic achievements of the Velkari, even the military innovations of the Keth Mori. All of it has value." Admiral Lee activated a communication device on her wrist. "Fleet Command, initiate escort formation. The Stellar Whisper will be accompanying us to Sol System for formal diplomatic proceedings." As the human fleet began moving in perfect coordination around the Zephyrian vessel, Veltar realized he needed to contact his superiors. With trembling hands, he activated his ship's long-range communication array and began composing what would be the most important message in Hegemony history. "Hegemony Command, this is Captain Veltar of the Stellar Whisper *", he began, his voice growing stronger as he spoke. "I am transmitting a priority alert that will fundamentally change our understanding of galactic civilization." He paused, looking at the human officers standing calmly on his bridge, then at the massive fleet of impossible vessels surrounding his ship. "We have not discovered a primitive species requiring uplift or protection," he continued. "We have encountered beings who possess the capability to have conquered our entire galaxy years ago, but who chose instead to watch over us from a distance. They have been gardeners while we believed ourselves to be the dominant civilization in known space." Admiral Lee nodded approvingly as Veltar spoke. "The balance of galactic power has shifted permanently," Veltar concluded. "But not through conquest or force. Humanity has not joined galactic civilization. Rather, galactic civilization has been invited to join humanity as partners in something greater than any of us imagined possible. As his message transmitted across the galaxy, Veltar looked out at the stars surrounding them. Somehow, they seemed smaller now, but infinitely more precious, like jewels carefully tended in a vast garden that stretched beyond the edge of imagination.